So, so I think we have promoted this webinar throughout our campuses all over Malaysia. So I hope we can start immediately. Before that, I would like to introduce Prof. Yuhanis. Just now, Dr. Nurul has given us a glimpse of Prof. Yuhanis' background, but let me just recap the biography of Prof. Yuhanis. Okay, Prof. Yuhanis Dr. Aziz is a professor of tourism marketing at the School of Business and Economics in Universiti Putra, Malaysia, UPM. She obtained her undergraduate degree in hotel management from Middlesex University in London before continuing her master's degree at the Scottish Hotel School, Strathclyde University in Scotland. Yuhanis received her PhD in business management from the University of Nottingham, UK in 2007. Currently serves as the Deputy Dean of Graduate Studies and International, where she is responsible for the administration of postgraduate students and internalization activities of the school. Prof. Yuhanis has taught across the spectrum of years and programs, including undergraduate and postgraduate thought and research program. She has supervised over 12 PhD students, including Dr. Nurul, to completion as the main supervisor and nearly 40 students as committee members. In terms of MBA supervision, over 6 students have graduated under her supervision. Prof. Yuhanis has made over 160 scholarly contributions, including nearly 100 peer-reviewed research papers. Prof. Yuhanis' research interests include destination marketing, customer experience management, sustainable management, service marketing, and brand marketing. Prof. Yuhanis is a mixed method researcher, but with heavy weightage on quantitative research, specializing in structural equation modeling. Her work has been supported through a series of grants from local and international bodies, either in public or private institutions. In addition, she has been involved in many collaborative research and consultation projects financed by various institutions. Prof. Yuhanis also has served as one of the journal editorial board members at local and international levels. In addition to her research and writing, Prof. Yuhanis does substantial work in academic program auditor and assessor. She has been appointed as a senior professor by the Malaysian Qualification Agency, MQA, where she is tasked to review the academic program of various higher education institutions. In addition to her UPM role, Prof. Yuhanis is a visiting professor at the Universitas 11 Maret, Solo, 2019. I think I have it all. That's a very extensive work, Prof. Yuhanis, for like I think more than 20 years of services. And I think actually I would when I saw that I wanted to make it more comprehensive, to summarize, but I think I won't do you any justification, because that would hinder the purpose of you having here, because we wanted you then to share your experience and your knowledge and all in our webinar series, especially in this our target to submit more FRGS quality and quality FRGS submission this time around. So I think without further ado, Prof. Yuhanis, I pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Somehow or other, I think I have very unstable internet this afternoon. I really hope that things will be okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to RMC and Research Innovation at UITM. In UPM, we are called RMC, and especially for the invitation made by Deputy Director, Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Hamiza, as she explained earlier, as well as coordinator for Social Creativity Innovation. Dr. Chemah, ya. Thanks for the kind introduction. Alhamdulillah, saya sangat berbesar hati untuk kembali semula ke UiTM to share my little knowledge with everyone. Sikit-sikit saya tahulah, insyaAllah I will share my level best to assist everyone sharing knowledge, because certainly when you talk about FRGS here, that there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot of reading and understanding the current issues around that need to be taken into consideration before we can actually write a good research proposal. Okay. So without further delay, let me share the slide presentation with everyone. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Once again, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon to everyone. So sorry once again for the delay. I think partly because of the internet punya problem lah kot, even though okay, can see what you are sharing over the area above the, okay, alright, okay. So there might be a disturbance here and there lah lepas ni, ya, especially the technical part. I think my internet pun less stable, even though the rest are okay. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let's take a look at the basic definition, or what is fundamental research all about. So as we can see here, why do we need to do fundamental research? So the keyword that we can actually highlight here is actually a major component of innovation and a key to the development of modern society. Meaning to say, the first highlight that we can see here is actually the contribution to the society, to the nation. Of course, plus as a researcher, we would also want to contribute to the body of knowledge, or the original contribution in terms of academic work, okay, which is required by each and every one of us here at the university. Okay, so these are the key topics that will be covered. I have 7 main areas, so I'll go very quickly on some part of the presentation so that we can spend more time going through all the key area or key criteria of the fundamental research application. All right. So first, let's take a look at the term. Okay, the term of fundamental research. It is also known as basic research. All right, or pure research. And besides that, fundamental research is also famously known where you need to be able to generate new knowledge. Okay, when we talk about new knowledge, we are looking at the generation of new theories, concept or ideas. All right, so that this package, new theory, new concept or new ideas, to deal with the unresolved problem. So the problem, I highlighted the word problem in red, and then in a big capital to highlight that it is very important for us to look at what is happening, what is actually happening around us. Even though your work needs to be supported with the established literature review, but then you need to know what is happening actually around you, because this is fundamental work that we are talking about. So at the same time, it answers the question of why and how. All right. So but ideally, when we talk about fundamental research, we should focus on 3 main areas. All right, accumulation of the theory, fundamental structure, as well as fundamental processes. So ideally, the context of fundamental research need to cover the new theories. Okay, how the way in which once you identify the theory, you can accumulate, you can add more to the body of knowledge. And then the structure, the fundamental structure in terms of looking at the suitability to the current work, all right, what has been done by other researchers, and in what way you are looking at something that has not been done before, and you are also looking at fundamental processes. Okay, moving forward, let's take a look at, very quickly on the difference between fundamental research and applied research. All right, so as mentioned earlier, fundamental research also meaning pure research or basic research, where this is where we expand the knowledge of the processes of business management. All right, the example that is given here is business management. From my body of knowledge or area of discipline result in universal principle relating to the process and its relationship to outcome, and finding significance and value to the society at large. On the other hand, when we look at the applied research, applied means you are considering the existing theory and in what way you can actually apply in your current research. So it improves understanding of particular business management problem, especially majority of applied research is very relevant to solve a problem of one particular business or one particular association, organization or entity, and it normally results in the solution to a problem, new knowledge limited to a problem, findings of practical relevance and value to the manager in the organization. And certainly the context that is given now is in the context of business management, but certainly it is not limited to only business operation. Okay, right. Let's take a look at why is the grant proposal rejected. Okay, so I have listed 12 here, but certainly it is not limited to only 12. Okay, but these are the key ones, meaning to say, oppositely, when we don't want our grant to be rejected, we have to come up with a good proposal, with a very a solid proposal, where your proposal shouldn't be written in only few days. Okay, it needs a series of preparation, it needs a series of discussion in order to come up with a solid and sound proposal. Okay, the context of the research is not clear. Okay, in the context of the research, this is where you are looking at what are the area of focus here. Let me share the example in the context of my area of research. For example, tourism. Yeah, okay. Tourism is a big industry, but when you look at tourism, are you going to focus on specific area of tourism? Are you going to look at tourism in general, or are you going to look at tourism specifically looking at sustainable tourism, or are you going to focus on medical tourism? So the context has got to be very clear. When you talk about the context of the research, so majority of the data should come from that perspective. If, let's say, you choose medical tourism, so the write-up, the problem has got to come from the medical tourism. And the idea has got to be original. Okay, the idea is not original and not critical, meaning to say a majority of the work that is copy and paste is not actually helping us to come up with a good proposal. So when you talk about originality of the ideas, first you need to start by looking at what are the real issues that is faced by the industry. Okay, I mentioned the word industry here because this is one of the important elements when we evaluator or assessor of the proposal we look at. No clear contribution. Okay, this is why you need to define very clearly what will be the contribution of your work. Academic contribution will certainly be there, even though some of the assessor, they are looking at in what way your contribution will be very important to the nation, to the society and economy. But not to forget, our proposal need to have an impact, which I will deliberate towards the end. Okay, so the contribution has got to be, if I can share here, has got to be from the academic contribution and non-academic contribution. And for the non-academic contribution, it has got to be, it will be better if you can explicitly decide and categorize your contribution from the perspective of practitioners as well as policymakers. So this is where you need to be very clear with the who will be your practitioners who will benefit from your research. Okay. And then number 4, no research problem. Okay, in this context, in the context of fundamental research problem, I would say, this is my school of thought when we actually sit down and evaluate fundamental research grant, we are looking at the real problem that is happening in the industry. Okay, this is not academic problem yet. You need to be able to differentiate between industry gap and academic gap. Academic gap needs to be there to support the current research problem. So you need to know what is actually happening around you. You need to know what will be the current issues that need to be solved. Okay, if you cannot solve it, at least you provide solution. You provide recommendation and suggestion. Okay, not detailed and not comprehensive. Okay, this is very important. The proposal has got to be very detailed, has got to be very thorough, and this is where you are looking at number 7. Okay, that there's an interconnection between number 5 and number 7. You are looking at the comprehensiveness of your work. So if your coverage of the literature review are not recent, if your coverage of literature review are not covering the I remember when I did my PhD last time, my supervisor said classic theory. Okay, classic theory need also to be integrated there. Perhaps some of you may say, why classic theory? It has been published like 20, 30 years ago. This classic theory still need to be considered, even though you're not doing PhD now, still need to be considered as part of your work, because this is actually part of the acknowledgement of what has been done before, to show your level of body of knowledge, that you are not only looking at selective work, but you look at the prominent work. Okay, so when you look at one specific area of research, the prominent researcher cannot be ignored. Okay, they need to be cited to show that you know these are the prominent work in your area of research. Okay, and number 6, this is very, very common when we evaluate the proposal. Not easy to read, poor flow, and not logical. Sometimes we feel like this is like a 3 days proposal preparation, because we cannot see the coherency, we cannot see the flow. I mean, the definition is jumping here and there. You don't actually structure the argument when you put it as a part of the background of the study. The literature review are not supporting the problem statement. Yeah. Okay. Number 8, not significant to society and policymakers. Right. This is very, very important that the assessor will look at in what way your proposal will be contributing to the society and to the policymaker. When we actually go through the the form, the migrant form, you will actually see the importance of the contribution to this group of people. Okay, so now I would like to connect number 4 and number 8 here. Now, when we identify the research problem that is happening in the industry, or in another word, we talk about the context of the research. Okay, when I mention context of the research, the context can be divided into 2. We look at the context of the industry. We look at the context of the organization that we are looking at. We also look at the context of the academic work. Yeah, that will be the academic context. So they have to jive together, all right? So when we don't see the when you don't actually define the research problem clearly, this is where you will not be able to connect to number 8, all right? So there's a connection from one point to another. Okay, not scientifically rigor. Okay, this is another aspect that will be evaluated. Okay, number 9, I have added this, even though this is not specifically mentioned as one of the evaluation in the form. But then when we talk about scientifically rigor, our scientifically rigor are different as compared to the scientists, because we are not pure scientists. We are social scientists. We are still scientists, but we are social scientists. So scientifically rigor here requires something like a proper flow of the determination of the step in doing research. All right. So this is something a little bit like a research process. Remember, when we teach research method to the student in class, that there must be a flow that we will have to follow. Okay. You talk about identification of research problem, research gap. You talk about in what way your literature review can actually support. Okay, you need to know, when you talk about literature review, your literature review will not be purely present in the literature review section, but you also need to add your literature review to the research background, and some literature review definitely is needed to support your problem statement. And when we come to methodology, this is where we will actually evaluate in what way your methodology will be very sound, which is also related to point number 10. When we mention we will conduct qualitative research. Why qualitative research is needed? Why not mixed method? Or for example, if you claim that your FRGS will be done using mixed method, why there is a need for you to conduct quali and quanti together? All these need to be justified. All right, and all this need to tie back with the research objective. Even though I didn't actually mention research objective here, but research objective is certainly critically very, very important. Okay, number 11, unrealistic budget and schedule. This is a common thing that is used by the assessor to reject the application. And finally, the publication avenue is not stated. Even though some of the, some of us, for example, if we talk among each other, it is sufficient to put, okay, 2 publications. But to me, based on my experience as a grant applicant, as well as the assessor, we would like to see the potential avenue of publication. All right. In a way, it is good to cite the name, or in a way, it's good to state the name of the potential journal, whether it is high or low ranking. That would be question number 2. But we would like to see the potential avenue for your publication. It's just that don't overpromise here, okay? Because some of the researcher, they sort of like overpromise when they put Q1 and Q2 because they want to please the assessor. But sometimes we also look at the suitability of your work with the publication avenue. Now, one thing that I think we can highlight here is why the grant is rejected. Because some of us, we apply for the sake of applying the grant. But remember, FRGS is very competitive. All right. At the moment, when you look at the list of the university that are listed by the latest Pindaan 2021, we have 20 UA to compete with in order to apply. Not only we're talking about UiTM alone. For example, UiTM is very big university. So you have got your colleague who are also applying the research grant together. And we have 80 university swasta. University swasta plus college swasta, as well as 10 university cawangan. For example, my former university, Nottingham University, is also listed as part of the university where they are also eligible to apply for grant. So these FRGS are very competitive. All right. So when you got your FRGS grant, it's being diraikan by the university because it's not easy to get this grant. So proper planning needs to be done in the right way in order to make sure that your proposal is solid. All right. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is a quality proposal. Yeah. I have divided into several parts, which number 1 related to the title. All right. I'll go through as we move along to the next slide. Number 2, convincing executive summary. This is very important. This is the first impression that you can give to your assessor. All right. Very good executive summary. where this is where you have to integrate all the key things here. What is the real issues pertaining to the current context of your research? What will be your research objective? And this is where when we look at the executive summary, it has to jive with your research background and the rest of your research objective and research question. Okay, number 3, clear problem statement and objective. All right, and / research question lah. Okay, it depends on school of thought. Some people they prefer objective, some people they prefer only research question. But then you have to read the form. You have to go through the migrant form in order to be sure on what to be included. Okay, number 4, critical and comprehensive literature review. Okay, I add the word critical because some of the literature review are just too descriptive. The assessor cannot see the critical part of the literature review, where it is merely like, for example, if I can mention MBA student, because I know we are all supervising a different level of student here. We are not saying that the quality of MBA dissertation are not good. They are all good, but the level of critical write-up for MBA student are not as deep as a PhD student. We are all supervising our student at different levels, so we know what will be the depthness of the write-up. So that's why number 4 I highlighted here, critical, LR, as well as comprehensive. But certainly when I mention comprehensive, we need to know our limit. All right, we need to know our limit. We cannot write like a chapters of a literature review. We need to know which one is the most relevant one, which one is the prominent one, which one are the recent one, where from their write-up, it can lead you to the gap identification, all right, in order to support the research problem. So my advice is that you need to refer as much as you can to high-ranking journal. Because high-ranking journal, they have all these elements, inshallah. And finally, detailed and clear research method. Right. When you talk about detailed and clear research method, this is where the assessor would like to look at the rigorousness of your methodology that you presented. Okay, let's say, for example, when you mention the sample size, all right? The sample size will be 400. You have to justify why 400. Then you have to link back with the context of your research, all right? Okay, I will try and address that as we move along, yeah? Right, and number 6, ethical consideration. So this is very important. Every university has their own ethical consideration that they have to follow. So don't ignore this part. And also, if you look at the new Pindaan 2021 FRGS, they have the link in order to provide us the information on the ethical consideration. And finally, this is also very, very important, realistic budget and schedule. Okay, as we move along, I will go back to this later. Now, these are the example of FRGS. From number 1 until number 6, this is last year application. Number 7 and number 8 is actually in 2013 and 2019. As much as I can, I'm providing the amount that is secured by this researcher. For example, take a look at how they write the title. And by looking at the title, we can tell that this is actually fundamental research. Okay? For example, if you look at number 1, number 4, and number 6, this is B40. All right? This is the research that is related to B40, which at the moment part of national agenda. I would say national agenda. So we need to know our own area of research. We need to go and check what will be the national agenda in the context of our research. Okay, and here you can also take a look at the word, the keyword. I would say keyword here, pembentukan, model nilai bersama, developing a model, another word here, another model word here, Profiling, for example, profile pengguna B40. And another word of development of self-screening, blah, blah, blah. Typology, another development, and validation of self-perf, okay? Right, I cannot go through one by one lah. Right, number 9, evaluation on the actual potential of halal tourism. Index, okay, another index. Number 10, number 11, number 12 is another index. So number 10, number 11, and number 12, when you are proposing the title as index, you must know what are the existing index that literature has at the moment. And in what way, if you wanted to propose a new index, in what way your new index will be relevant to a specific government agency or a specific body, yeah? So it is not merely proposing an index. What are the list of the available index? And in what way your new proposed index, your harapan that you're going to propose a new index will be beneficial to which group of people? To the practitioners, you know, these are the things that you need to have in your mind when you write the proposal. Okay, and the rest of the title, I've got 38 or 34 altogether. Okay, and then, another model, research impact, authentication of halal logo, all right, through the use of smart holographic seal, all right. Number 24, I would imagine that they are proposing a new smart technology, all right? Because if you look at the definition of fundamental, you need to come up with something, new benefit, new application, and so on. Okay, and this is the last slide for the title. Okay, impact of quality business model, effect of country governance, empirical evidence, okay? This is economic research. Development of talent retention model, job productivity model, and so on, yeah? All right. Now, so it is very, very important for us to read, okay, Garis Panduan for FRGS Pindaan tahun 2021. I believe you guys already have this. It is available. And certainly RMC has actually distributed to each and every one of us. So there are 6 parts altogether. Now, I would like to highlight the important bidang keutamaan. Okay, as we can see here, we have got bidang keutamaan penyelidikan. We have got 7 domain, all right, 7 research domain. Inshallah, we will have no problem to slot in ourselves in one of the domains. And then we have 8 research cluster. Please be sure to slot in yourself to the right research cluster. All right. When the assessor read your proposal, they will see the suitability of research cluster. And certainly this research cluster need to be met with the 2.23 and 2.24. All right. As you can see, this is new. If I'm not mistaken, last year we don't have this. All right. Last year we don't have this. So, Rangka Kerja 1010 MISTI from the context of Malaysian science, technology, innovation, and economy. All right. So, this is where the assessor will look at the suitability of the one that you highlighted just now with number 10 and, with MISTI as well as SPV. This is Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. Wawasan Kemakmuran Bersama 2030. Right. Okay. This is what we call key economic growth activity. We have got a lot of KEGA. Okay. You have to look at the suitability of KEGA very closely. Let's say, for example, my area. Okay, senang. I bagi contoh my area. I'm a tourism person. If, let's say, for example, I wanted to apply for my FRGS this year, I can slot in myself in KEGA 15. Okay, Malaysia Truly Asia. Now, at the same time, if I also can allocate myself in KEGA 12, Economy Hijau, if my area of research in the context of tourism is actually related to green sustainable tourism, for example. All right, so the placement of your SPV 2030 can be allocated according to several categories. But then you have to be very sure with the suitability of your research, because when the assessor read your proposal, they will see whether the placement, the mapping of your proposal is actually suitable with the KEGA, yeah. And the other one is actually, if I'm not mistaken, let's say, for example, KEGA 9, perhaps I can also go for KEGA 9 in the context of tourism. But then here you can see KEGA 9, Coastal and Maritime Economy, Persisiran and Maritime. Let's say, for example, if I propose a research for bukan not Taman Negara, the Redang Island, okay, Marine Park, okay. Marine Park is actually part of tourism, but at the same time, if my research can deliver the benefit to the economy pesisiran of the marine park people, then I can also park under KEGA number 9. So you have to look at the suitability of your area of research, then you can claim under this. So this 2.23 and 2.24 is actually new with one addition. Okay, one more addition. This is not new because when we evaluated the proposal last year, SDG is already there. So we have got 18 SDG altogether. Originally 17, but we have got one others. So ideally, the context of your research should also be met with the SDG. Yeah. All right. Now, let's go to the individual FRGS assessment, because I believe each and every assessment here is actually directly will link to how you can actually prepare a winning proposal. Yeah. So ideally, I have listed 10 altogether, which is title, executive summary, research background until number 10. So all these are the assessment criteria that will be evaluated by the assessor when you submit your work online later. Now, title will be 5%. All right, the criteria that will be evaluated, your title has got to be specific in nature, reflecting fundamental issues to be resolved and novelty of the proposal. Okay, it has got to be brief and reflect the content of your proposal. Meaning to say, as I've shared the list of the title just now, you have to be very specific. If you want to examine B40, then you have to mention it explicitly, and the content of your research background problem statement has got to reflect the B40. All right. Now, let's say, for example, if you want to examine Gen Y, you have to justify why Gen Y. You have to provide, I jump a little bit here and there, yeah. You have to provide the facts and figures in your research background to highlight why examining specifically on Gen Y is critical, but not looking at overall population. So the data has got to be there in order to support the context of your research. Right, among the comments that we normally provide, for example, the novelty or uniqueness is not obvious. All right. There are many similar proposals that has been carried out similarly. Okay, similar work has been done by the group and has been published by, let's say, for example, a group of researcher XYZ. Okay, this is may happening if you are just simply write a proposal without looking at the actual problem, and for some assessor, if you sit in a group of a researcher. Even the newness of the title or the title that is somewhat different is also one of the key criteria that may attract attention of your assessor. But then it cannot be too general because it will not reflect the context of your research. Okay, number 2, executive summary. Okay, the key criteria that will be evaluated, all the one in black font except for the blue one. I have added this because this is one of the key criteria that also will be evaluated. So we will look at the problem statement, even though it will not be in lengthy description, but there must be a very bold statement to highlight that, hey, look, my research is very important. This is what is happening in the industry. Okay. For example, the example given here, the comment, the problem statement is not explicitly addressed. Is it related to food security? If, let's say, for example, your title is highlighting food security, but none is mentioned about food security in your executive summary. Research objective. The objective do not clearly support the problem statement. I'll go back to this point later. Okay, methodology and rationale of the study. Aspect of methodology is missing. Methodology is not clear. All right. Expected output, outcome or implication. This is not mentioned, even though, if I'm not mistaken, in my grant application, it is stated clearly that these are the things that you need to add in your executive summary. Okay, significance of the output. Significance of the output is not highlighted. In what way your output will be relevant here? And I have added here, must include socio-economic benefit and related policy. Because your expected output or outcome and implication can be very general, but what we want to see is a specific output that address a specific group. For example, in what way it will improve the socio-economic, for example, the increment of GDP, you know, a better quality of life for B40, you know, things like that. Okay, and then research background. The weightage for this part is actually 15%. So the elaboration of the title, all right, we already have the title, so this is where we will elaborate further. Okay, we will see the relationship between the title with the research background, clarity of problem statement and research question. All right, I will explain this in detail in the next page. Meaning to say, in the research background, this is where you will add the relevancy of your problem statement. So in this context, we can assume like when we supervise our student, okay. But certainly this is not the rule of thumb, because we as a researcher, we as a supervisor, we come from a different school of thought. But one of the best practice, I would say best practice here, okay, that you need to identify the research problem. You need to know what is actually happening in industry, and we have to top up with our academic gap. So this is where, as I mentioned earlier, your literature review will help to highlight the gap which when we package together, when we talk about problem statement, our problem statement is discussed from two different perspectives, industry gap and academic gap. So that makes our research background solid. Yeah. Okay. This is very important. This is one of the criteria that we assessor evaluate, cited most recently last 5 years related references. Okay, what normally happen? References are not so recent. References are inadequate, and references are not comprehensive. Now, this is where you need to draw a line. Okay, I did mention at the beginning you need to have a classic theory if you like, but again, that is not a rule of thumb lah, basically. But you need to highlight the prominent researcher in your area, one or two, and then you will have to top up with the recent researcher. When nowadays, when you talk about recent researcher, go and look for the one that is published in high-ranking journal, the Q journal, because the Q journal, we all know, to submit in Q journal, it will take you 2-3 years before it can be published, yeah, or some even 1 year. It depends, because some of the Q journal is actually paid lah. Okay, some are paid journal. For example, this morning we had Q4 presentation. UPM has got Q4 presentation. So this is where we are quite particular with the paid journal versus non-paid journal, because some of the Q journal you don't have to pay, but some you have to pay. Okay, so there must be a balance there. All right, to make sure that you are citing last 5 years. Okay, in line with the government policy national agenda, as you can see here, this is very important. Meaning to say, the what do you call it? The significant write-up on the relevancy to the government policy national agenda need to be highlighted in the research background, not only later. All right. So, for example, which government agenda are you addressing? Which department? Which ministry? Okay. Which government agency? Which aspect of research is related? Whether they can be at local, national, or global issue. So you are looking at like as an individual, yeah. We are a researcher. This is like something that we always tell our PhD students. It's you, okay, Dr. Nurul lah. If I can use Dr. Nurul as example, it's the same Dr. Nurul. When she comes to the office, she's the deputy director. When she go to class, she's a lecturer. When she supervises a student, she's a supervisor. So this is where we are playing different role here. So what I'm trying to highlight here, when you talk about playing a different role, your literature review, your write-up need to be written in a different way. For example, here, you can highlight in what way your research is actually aligned with the government policy and national agenda, where at the same time, that would be at the beginning, where at the same time, there will be a column, there will be an area where you have to highlight in what way your research will be novel. All right, again, there must be a continuity or the word sing. I will introduce the word sing later. In what way they are coherent. The sequence, the sequence needs to be there. All right. Research background. Okay, this is the one that I highlighted earlier. The clarity of problem statement and research question, blah, blah, blah. All right. Problem statement is not reflected as the outcome of the review. Okay. Meaning to say you cannot have two descriptive literature review. That's what I said earlier in the quality of proposal. Your write-up has got to be critical. Okay, you need to be able to see, you need to be able to critically link the context of your research, which problem statement, as well as with the literature review. Okay, problem statement is related more to the application rather than fundamental of the system. All right, research questions are too general and not specific to solving the fundamental issues, which you have to highlight the fundamental issue earlier. Research objectives are not aligned with the research question and literature review. For example, suddenly you have one particular research objective where perhaps if the assessor identified the keywords there, but then it is not discussed in the literature review. This has happened. Perhaps when we write our proposal, we didn't realize that. Okay, we just mention and we just state, but we don't actually capture when we discuss in either research background or the literature review part. Okay, and your LR is too lengthy and does not focus on the current proposal. You can go on and on and on. When I say comprehensive, this is again, you need to draw a line, or there must be a parameter to set the comprehensiveness of your work, not too long, not too short, but then it's sufficient. Yeah, it is sufficient. And the scope of the research is too limited. Okay, moving on, 3.3, research background. You must demonstrate your knowledge on the research problem. You must demonstrate your understanding on the theoretical and research issues related to the research question. You need to show your ability to critically evaluate relevant literature information. You must indicate the ability to integrate and synthesize the existing literature, right? Because we don't want it to be like a proposal that is submitted by someone who are still new. It has got to be a polished proposal. Remember, as I said, FRGS is competitive research. We need to be sure that our work are at its best level. Okay, and you must provide new theoretical insight or develop a new model as conceptual for the research. The proposal must reflect a significant and substantial contribution to the literature. For example, resolving an important theoretical issue or filling a major gap in the literature. So this has got to be highlighted. So in order to fill the major gap in the literature, you will have to highlight in what way the prominent researcher, how the way in which you can actually add to the literature that has been done by the previous research. Okay. Right, research objective. Now we move on to the research objective. So we are looking at the SMART criteria. Okay, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and within the time frame. So this will be evaluated at the same time. So among the comment that is provided, objectives are too broad and may not be achievable within the given time frame. Okay, for your information, the time given to us this time, minimum of 2 years, maximum of 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay, so your research has got to be within the time frame. So some people set the rule of thumb. Some say only 2 or 3 objectives, not more than 4, because but that would depend. Don't quote my name because we do not know if you have many objectives, but if you're able to meet within a specific period of time, then by all means, okay, by all means you can do that, as long as you can justify in the methodology part, because they are closely related. Okay, and then certainly your research objective has got to be related to problem statement and research question. So the research question here is related to solving research problem. All right. Okay, example, yeah. I cannot provide too many examples because I don't have access to the proposal, and some of them are quite confidential, yeah. Okay, so for example, you can see the mapping of research question and research objective. What are the halal tourism standard and requirement for the travelers? So the research objective to come up with a new framework, okay, for halal tourism standard and requirement. Okay, number 2, is there any gap between the desired halal tourism requirement and the actual tourism product, services, facilities, and governmental policies in Malaysia? So you as much as you can, if it is relevant, you can start mentioning the governmental policy, but you have to be very clear. You don't mention only the governmental policy. You must know. And the discussion about the governmental policy need to be there when you write your proposal. Okay? And then the research objective to evaluate through benchmarking procedures the gap between the desired halal tourism requirement and the actual. Okay? So there's 2 things here. You are looking at the desired halal tourism requirement and actual tourism product and services. And number 3, do Malaysian halal tourism businesses have an impact on the economic growth? Okay? So the research objective to make recommendation based on the halal tourism businesses and evaluate its potential impact to the economic growth. Okay? So this is, if I'm not mistaken, a 3 years project lah, yeah? Okay. Now, moving on, methodology. Right, what do we evaluate for methodology? Okay, when I say we evaluate, automatically, you need to have this in your proposal, all right? Because to me, going through the evaluation criteria will actually help you to write a winning proposal, okay? So that you can include all the key things that will be looked by the assessor, okay? The first criteria, clear and detailed. Okay, the word detailed description of methodology. Okay, this is from FRGS, yeah? It consists of field work. How are you going to conduct your field work? Let's say, for example, are you going to do face-to-face, or are you going to do using online, for example? Okay, so like for example now, you might even mention in your plan for data collection whether you're going to do face-to-face or online, because taking into consideration COVID is still around us. So basically they would like to see the feasibility of the project. Sampling technique. All right, when you talk about sampling technique, we don't simply mention, okay, I'm going to use non-probability sampling using purposive sampling, and that's it. We don't want to see that. We would like to see, perhaps you can sort of like define what is purposive sampling and how are you going to use purposive sampling. All right. Or for example, if you use a probability sampling technique, if you say you are going to use random sampling or stratified sampling, because we all know when you talk about stratified sampling, you must know your stuff well. You don't just mention it. What's the difference between stratified versus cluster sampling? if, let's say, for example, you stratify, you're going to stratify. How are you going to stratify the sample? If you say you're going to use cluster sampling, how are you going to cluster the sampling? You have to show different cluster. You don't just mention it. Certainly, that will be rejected. I mean, not reject as a whole proposal lah. There must be a lot of comment there. Don't wait for the comment to be there. Use your time to prepare your proposal now. Polish it, get it ready. When you submit, that we will expect some correction lah, of course. But we don't want the assessor reject outright our proposal. We want them to click resubmission, but not recommended. That will not be good. It will waste our time. So while we are preparing it, we as a researcher, we might as well prepare it correct right from the very beginning. So you have to be very specific, prepare a sampling plan well. For example, if I'm the assessor, I would want to see in what way you plan for your data collection. What will be the sample size for each cluster, for example? Why are you determining this sample size for a specific cluster? For example, just now, when you talk about the practitioners, okay, for Halal service provider, so who will be the people that will be involved in determination of data collection? So perhaps it can be the practitioners in terms of hotel accommodation, hotel provider, restaurant provider. You may also want to approach the travel agency, right? From every group of cluster, how many will be collected, whether you are going to conduct interview or survey. Okay, perhaps I'm not going to go in detail on different types of method yet. If we have question, then perhaps I will address that later, because that's a different school of thought here. Okay, so I will address that later. But at the end of the day, you have to be very detailed and very specific. All right. So for example, when you talk about statistical analysis, you will have to address accordingly. We are very happy to see this kind of proposal. When you talk about statistical analysis, what will be the type of software that you're going to use? What will be the step? All right. Some, those who are very successful, they even prepare their own flow chart in order to show the steps for this statistical analysis. When you collect the data, what will you do? Preliminary analysis. What will be the step involved in preliminary analysis? For example, missing value analysis, outliers analysis, and so on. Okay, before you move on to the next level. All right, same goes to qualitative research, where I would say majority of fundamental research is actually related to qualitative research. They use qualitative technique to collect the data. So when you talk about conducting interview, how are you going to transcribe the data? How are you going to analyze the data? Are you going to use content analysis? Are you going to use thematic analysis or whatnot? That has got to be explained very clearly. So on the right hand side, you can see the comments, yeah? That there are also comments such as methodology statement are too lengthy and not focusing to address the achievement of the objective. We would like to see the mapping between your methodology and the objective. Meaning to say, just now, you need to have a very clear, you need to have a very clear concept in your mind. When you talk about, let's say, for example, 3 objectives, how are you going to address all the 3 objectives that you highlighted? Okay. Objective number 1, what will be the suitable methodology? Let's say, for example, when you propose 3 research objectives, is it going to be all quali, or is it going to be mixed method, or is it going to be a purely quanti? So this has got to be addressed. We will certainly look at the continuity as well as the relevancy of your methodology and the proposed research objective. Okay. And okay, moving on, whether your methodology are able to achieve a specific research objective, because sometimes the research objective says direction on A, but then the methodology are moving towards the B direction. So it doesn't jive. Yeah, it doesn't jive. And okay, the last criteria, include research design. Okay, this this is very important, the research design. So please, as a researcher, we don't do shortcut. This is the same thing that I always mention to my PhD student, for example. There is no shortcut when you do PhD. Also, I would like to advise all of us here, my friend, okay, our colleague here, that there is no shortcut when you prepare FRGS grant. There must be a mapping of research design. You must understand different types of methods. What's the difference between quali and quanti? Why, let's say, for example, you don't simply claim that you wanted to collect your sampling technique, for example, you wanted to do a probability sampling technique, but then you don't mention the sampling frame. So ideally, when you learn research method, if you don't have sampling frame, you cannot do probability sampling technique. So you must read, you must know. You don't simply write and you don't simply put there if you don't understand yourself. All right. So you have to embrace. Okay, good FRGS proposal. You need to embrace what you write. Okay. Right. So another things that you have to also look at it is actually in relation to some methodology. Okay, we need to ask ourselves this question. Yeah, you have to ask yourself this question. Whether your method or your activities, all right, some people involve activities needs to meet the objective. What are the start and finish date for the method or activities? For example, if you use mixed method, right, which one should go first? Okay, you do the, for example, if it is exploratory research, you need to do quali, then maybe you wanted to confirm some of the research objective using quanti, right? So what will be the timeline, Gantt chart, those, so that has got to come together and jive. Okay, who has responsibility for completing each method and each activity? All right, we will be slowly touch on the suitability of the team member in your group. Okay, how will participant be selected? All right, for example, I have shared with you just now. If it involves, you mentioned in your proposal, for example, it involves several stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? How are you going to contact them? How are you going to select them? Okay, what factors determine the suitability of targeted respondent? Okay, for example, if you conduct a qualitative research, what will be the criteria that will be selected to be your targeted respondent? Why are these groups selected? When they are selected, the respective stakeholders, which objective they will actually help you to address the research objective, yeah? Okay, does this project build on the model already in existence? If not, how is it superior? Okay, what facilities and equipment will be required to conduct the method and activities? Now, point number 7 is also closely related to the application for the budget of cost estimate. There are things we can buy, there are things we cannot buy. Okay, all right, expected result. This is very, very important. Okay, they are all important. New theory or new finding or new knowledge. Okay, some quantitative aspect is required to strengthen the claim. All right. For example, when we mention quantitative aspect, this is also related to the facts and figures. Let's say, for example, if you want to focus on Gen Y, yeah, what will be the data that is available? For example, Gen Y, the use of social media. All right. What will be the percentage of the Gen Y using social media? Let's say, for example, if we say we are going to collect the data via Facebook, an examiner or assessor might question you, why Facebook? Because Facebook, the Gen Y nowadays, they don't really go to Facebook anymore. They would prefer Instagram and Twitter. So unless if the data that you collected from MCMC is saying that yes, Gen Y are still using Facebook, then that justifies the medium or the avenue for you to collect the data, right? So this is the thing that we examiner will see, the suitability. So meaning to say, when you want to claim the data will be collected through several mediums, we need to have a continuity. We need to know where is the right place to collect the data. All right. And in what way the data that is available around us will actually help in supporting the new theory and new findings. Okay, publication in index journal, top tier ranking journal if possible, or at least Scopus lah. Even I've checked the Pindaan 2021, my site is also accepted lah. Okay, my site is also accepted. So to improve, to increase your chance to be selected, perhaps at least Scopus lah, takkan my site kan, at least satu Scopus, satu my site for example. Yeah. All right. So the status and standing of index journal should be mentioned. So when you write the state, when you mention the name of the journal, you can put in bracket tu. Okay, you can put in bracket tu Scopus, my site, Web of Science, you know. So that when assessor tengok, oh, this is very detailed, she or he knows the stuff well lah. Okay. All right. Human capital or talent. All right. A 3 years project should have a PhD candidate or 2 master science candidate, which we always call GRA. A 2 years project should have a master science candidate. All right, and certainly another criteria will be impact on society, economy, and nation. So among the popular comment that we normally put, there is no data or statement to reflect the impact. In what way in what way the impact, in what way your research proposal are giving the impact to the society, economy, and nation. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Ay, kenapa tak jalan? Sekejap Sorry, saya tak sempat nak baca dalam chat room. Let me I don't know what happened now. Sekejap ya. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, expected outcome. Right. Just want to share with you. These are the what I would say the tips, the clue that we can include, but we don't simply include if we cannot come up with this. What are we looking at when we evaluate your proposal besides problem statement? This is because now we are talking about the expected outcome, yeah. Whether you can come up with a new theory. As we see when you read the term fundamental, it is always the notion of fundamental are always associated with a new theory, new ideas, everything new lah. All right, but at the same time, these are the key things that you can consider when you propose in your proposal. You can claim this, but you need to know. You need to know that it is not a matter of claiming this. In what way your research can move towards this direction? Okay, new theory. When you talk about new theory, certainly in your research background, you will have to talk about the existing theory and in what way you can add to the body of knowledge. New theory may be quite hard lah to me because new theory ini requires a very, kalau if you look from the perspective of social science, if you look from the philosophical perspective, it requires a specific type of research method, which is perhaps something like grounded theory. All right, so you need to have a kepakaran in grounded theory, if you like. So it depends, yeah. A prototype, a new model, an artifact, taxonomy, index, new plant process, solution to a practical problem. Now, number 8, if you are providing a solution to a practical problem, you have to clearly define what are the practical problems that the nation, the country are facing. Okay, so this is where you can actually judge them well. An instrument of use in the manufacturing industry or perhaps a new service design or method, okay, based on your fundamental research. Okay, all right. So the expected outcome must be clearly defined and its impact on society, economy, and nation must be well stated. We would like to see this when we evaluate, all right? And the likelihood of the research to achieve the expected result within the stated time frame must also be evidently highlighted. All right. Okay. Number 7, track record. Okay, this is also very, very important. Okay, and this is evaluated. All right, when we evaluate your research proposal, evidence of the previous successful research project, the second grant is related to the current proposal. For example, if we don't see a lot of new things, for example, if you want to extend from the previous research, I don't say you can extend, but the extension has got to be significant. You have to highlight in what way your research are different as compared to the previous one. Okay, because when we propose our proposal in my grant, we will have a list of history. Okay, a list of history that we have applied before, whether they are successful or not successful. Okay, what about previous research publication? If you have applied before, but the assessor see that that there is no significant publication, that will jeopardize the current publication as well. And no good track record in previous work or publication. All right, and ideally, this is a common comment that normally we give. Qualification and rank of the researcher. Ideally, it is strongly suggested to include a senior member, not all juniors. So you must have, let's say, for example, a combination of one professor or one associate professor with a few senior member, as well as the juniors lah, of course, ya. Kalau tak, sampai bila junior boleh belajar kan? Alright. So you need to have a nice, well-balanced team with the right experience. Meaning to say, let's say, for example, you can invite researcher from other university, and that is encouraged. For example, if I'm not mistaken, that is part of the pindaan. So when you invite, when you don't, let's say, for example, when you don't have expertise from your university, it's sort of like an value add for the current proposal to have a researcher from other university, because we see this as a complementary from each other. Because when you add the researcher from other university, those who become member from other university, the mark will not be affected lah. So in a way, you are looking at win-win situation. Okay, when you establish collaboration with other member from other university, next time when you work well together, they will invite you pula. So things like that lah, yeah. Okay, right. So don't forget to update your profile in my grant system. I have one little copy paste from my grant, which I'll show later. Yeah. Okay. Quality of the proposal, as I highlighted earlier, the quality of the proposal. So meticulous. This is the requirement that we will evaluate. Proper use of language, grammar, spelling, sentence construction. This is also evaluated. Good formatting and presentation. And references. The blue one is added. If possible and strongly recommended, follow the journal ranking order. Okay. Follow the journal ranking order. Meaning to say, you have to cite as much as you can, try and cite Q1, Q2, Q4 ranking journals, corpus, barulah yang lain. Yeah. Okay. The comment that normally we write for the meticulous part, proposal writing is poor, especially in the methodology section. There is no connectivity between objective and stages of methodology. I think I have highlighted this at a greater detail since the beginning of the sharing session today. For example, the term meticulous too, I wanted to highlight here, meticulous in terms of everything. Okay, meticulous in terms of everything. As you can see, for example, meticulous in terms of overall writing, not critical. For example, meticulous in terms of methodology. Okay, proposal lack in methodology section to support objective number X. There should be a clear step to address each objective. Proposal lack of novelty. For example, objective number 4 has some novelty, but it must focus on the issue of the fundamental aspect. Okay, all right. Now, number 9, element of FRGS criteria. Yang ni very not easy, very not easy to achieve lah, yeah. This is not easy. The criteria here mentioned as novel, cutting edge, and high impact, right? So aspect of high impact is lacking. novelty and fundamental are not explicitly highlighted. So these are the comments that we researcher don't like to see lah. Basically, I share from my own perspective lah. If I see this, alamak, how are you going to make sure that your research are cutting edge and high impact? Yeah, description of cutting edge research in the required field is not provided. Now, for assessor senang lah nak tulis macam ni, but we as a researcher macam mana? How am I going to improve my proposal writing to reflect all these three components? So I have actually sikit lah. Okay, I have I share my insight here in terms of novel, cutting edge and high impact for you to ponder lah, yeah. Okay, novel, original, fresh, unique. Okay. Kalau from the context of marketing, in what way yours is what do you call it, distinctive? That could be another word that I can mention here. Distinctive, different, yeah, from others. So in order to ensure that our research is distinctive, unique, we must know the literature. We must know what has been done by other researchers which has not been done before. All right, but you have to remember, in the context of fundamental research, the contribution has got to cover the economic, society and nation, unlike the applied research. Nak juga novel. Okay, but this is a extra requirement lah. Okay, so when you talk about novel, does the research use novel technique, tools and procedures? Okay, in terms of cutting edge pula, the latest or most advanced stage in the development of something. Okay, is the new data required? All right. Is existing data utilized in a new way? For example, you introduce new methodology. Okay, if let's say, for example, normal practice, you use a normal interview, but then in the context of your research, you might want to use something that is very not much popular. For example, qualitative inquiry. Okay, appreciative inquiry. I do not know. So you need to know. For example, these, if you want to claim, these are among a very first few research that is conducted using this particular methodology. All right? Is it cutting edge? Let's say, for example, if you claim it is not common to use structural equation modeling in the area of, for example, education research. Are you sure about it? I just saying, yeah. I don't really mean it. I'm just giving you an example. So, the minute you start coming up with that statement, you have to be very sure. Are you sure about it that SEM has not been used in the context of education research, for example? So these are the things that you need to consider before you write. You must know your stuff well. And finally, high impact. What does it mean by high impact here? Okay. General definition of high impact lah, it has got to be powerful. When you talk about high impact of what? New knowledge, great effect. High ranking journal are also considered as high impact. Yeah. Okay. Now, new requirement. Okay. It was here since last year lah, basically. Yeah. Okay. For example, patent search 2%. Okay, collaboration 2%, risk assessment 1%. I do not want to deliberate this further because everything is actually available in the Pindaan 2021, yeah. But you can see if you don't have all these 5 markah dah hilang, yeah. Okay, actually I've copied paste this from one of my evaluation last year. So as you can see, automatically as assessor, benda ni akan keluar. Not recommended rating 5. Okay, sebab tak ada. Alright, because the grant applicant ni don't upload patent search, collaboration and risk assessment. Meaning to say, these are the 3 things that you need to look at. You need to look at apa tu? For example, patent search. You kena tengok what are the availability of the current patent that is available. In what way your research has potential to be patented. Okay, later. Collaboration. Yang ni, I would imagine that tak susah. Last year the JPT I'm not sure lah whether this is me, but from what I've heard lah, yeah. Again, don't quote my name lah. They are not that particular yet last year. Sebab last year they just introduced. But this collaboration, they would like to see the continuity of your research later by tying you up with the collaborator from the industry. Okay, meaning to say, you can safely claim that your research will have an impact or effect on the collaborator. Let's say, for example, your collaborator can be the industry, can be the policymakers, and so on. Because if I'm not mistaken, they don't actually define it. Maybe the definition for collaborator is there, but I dare not to share now lah sebab nanti saya bagi ajaran sesat lah pula kan. Okay, so that is a collaboration. So there must be surat, for example, letter of intent to show your niat there, that you wanted to collaborate with the respective body. And risk assessment, okay, this need to be done as well. So kalau if you don't upload the evidence here, easily you will hilang 5 markah. So letaklah ya. Okay, letak. Now the budget. Right, the budget has got to be reasonable. Okay, I have added kat situ as part of the example. You have to provide detailed breakdown of the budget. Do not ask to buy equipment. Okay, for example, salary and wages as part of the guideline. If the project is 2 years, so 36K, you cannot pay more than that. Not more than that, sorry. Let's say, for example, different university, they have the wajaran to pay your GRA. For example, for Master Science, 1,500. For PhD, the graduate, the PhD candidate yang tengah buat PhD with us will be 1,800. If I'm not mistaken, now maximum of 2K per month. So these are the ceiling lah ya for the budget. So it has got to be reasonable. Okay, assessor ni dia suka cut budget orang sebab one of the key thing is actually to help the grant applicant to narrow down, to reduce the amount of the budget, so chances for you to get the grant is there. Not to say those yang minta banyak will be rejected. No, I'm not saying that. But then I don't know. Don't ask unrealistic budget lah basically, yeah. Okay. And no detail provided, the cost estimate is not reasonable, overseas traveling, it is suggested 2 years and above. Year 2 and above, year 2. We do not normally travel in the first year because ideally, first year too, we are still in the process of, planning and collecting the data. So that's why in the second year, it is okay to travel unless you have a very clear plan that really show you need to travel in the first year. So that has got to be evident in your methodology. Okay? And budget requested is not reflected in methodology. Let's say, for example, you wanted to do qualitative interview, individual in-depth interview. But suddenly, in the budget, you ask for a token to be given for focus group. But then none is mentioned about focus group in your methodology. Let's say, for example, you ask for ringgit Malaysia 100 for each member of focus group. Katakanlah if let's say, for example, you mentioned about focus group, you wanted to invite 20 respondents for focus group. But then when you ask for a budget, you minta RM 100 ringgit for 50 applicants. Whereas in the methodology, you mentioned only 20. So there is no sync lah. Yeah? Okay. And then you have to be specific on the amount of data collection. For example, how much is for enumerator, how much token will be given. These are among the examples that you have got to be very detailed. You cannot come up with one lump sum, but you don't provide the breakdown because we cannot see. We need to see the detail in order to approve. All right. So please make the job for assessor easy. Provide the breakdown, reasonable breakdown, so that it will be easy for you to manage. What you can do, prepare your budget in Excel file dulu, so that you can see if you add or minus here and there, you can get the final total. That will be much easier. Yeah. Okay. Prepare dalam Excel file. Now, the payment for enumerator will be too high. For example, nak bayar sampai 50 ringgit per enumerator, so that is not reasonable lah. Yeah, the token is too expensive. For example, for one participant, the token will be like sampai 50 ringgit, whereas you can go for a cheaper punya token. Yeah. Alright, provide justification for each item stated and certain amount requested. Okay, for example, a common, comment is that the amount requested is not justified, or the conference fee is too high, or publication fee is too high. Alright, because sometimes, of course, as I said, we want to impress the assessor, but it has got to be reasonable, because we know some of the Q1 paper, it can reach up to 10 to 15,000 ringgit per publication. Try and look for some of the publication that is reasonable lah, because some assessor, they do reject on the basis of the publication fee is high. It is very important to bear in mind that we don't want our proposal to be rejected first time when we submit. Okay, we don't want that. At least when they say resubmit, then it will be good for us. Yeah. Okay. Right. Sorry, kenapa pula lari? Okay. Right. Cost estimate. Okay. This is the example extracted from Migrant. Okay. For example, we are asked to click whether it is very poor, poor, acceptable, good, and very good. Alright, so this is automatically will appear in your Migrant system. For example, we have got 7 votes altogether. Alright, salary and wages, traveling and transportation, maximum of 40%. It will appear right away. Rental, 24,000. Be sure that whatever rental that you put here has got to be justifiable with the method and with the objective. Don't simply put rental if it is not necessary. You have to justify. Yeah. Research material and supply. The detail is actually available in Migrant punya garis panduan. Maintenance and repair services, professional services, as well as accessory and equipment lah. Yeah. Okay. Right. I've left to share the specific 5.2 for penggunaan peruntukan with everyone. For example, here it says penyelidik tidak dibenarkan untuk menggunakan peruntukan geran bagi membuat pembelian yang tidak berkaitan secara langsung dengan projek penyelidikan. Penyelidik tidak dibenarkan, pembelian yang tidak dibenarkan, pembayaran sebarang bentuk yuran keahlian. Okay, no longer pembelian bahan rujukan, no more books are allowed to be purchased because some of the books are very expensive. Unlike last time, pembelian peralatan ICT dan komunikasi seperti mobile phone, laptop, no. Okay. Number 4, pembayaran bil utility and so on and so forth. So, read the garis panduan before you start asking many things in your proposal so that we will not waste our time. But then, if you feel that it is necessary for you to request for that, you need to provide further justification, and that justification has got to be supplied with the with the apa orang panggil PO ke? Okay, PO ya. Okay. Right. So summary of the assessment. Alright, what I wanted to highlight here is actually this is how we evaluate the proposal. For example, scale 1 to 2 very poor, poor 3 to 4, 5 to 6 acceptable, good 7 to 8, and very good 9 to 10. My experience as penilai, it has got to be good lah. Kalau katakanlah we click acceptable 5 to 6, certainly we as assessor must provide feedback. Okay, must provide comment. Automatically, we cannot just leave it just like that. Let's say, for example, title. Okay, it is given 8. Title has been changed, but the word Dimescape seems not to be integrated with the research objective of the study. Okay, executive summary pula, dia dapat 7. Executive summary has been improved, but its relevancy with the title is lacking. The proposed framework is hoped to assist the management in staging Malay culture during experience towards blah, blah, blah lah. This is not clear. All right? This is not clear because the researcher merely come up with the general statement. Okay? Right. Additional criteria for the evaluation, impact. Okay. Maknanya, this is not really additional criteria lah. This is something that I would like to highlight to each and every one of us, also myself, that please pay particular attention to this criteria. Okay, impact. Must have impact to at least two elements, the society, industry, government, as well as certainly academic. Sebab impact ni, we are looking at the impact of the journal. Walaupun you can see point number 2, the output. Okay, output, for example, index publication, postgraduate student, you must have the element of all those things lah, the one that I've shared earlier. But then impact, academic impact ni, we also would like to see in the long run. Let's say, for example, with the article that will be published, we would like to see the citation. We would also like to see the H-index, even though not now, tapi that kind of impact that we are looking at lah, basically, yeah. Okay, future aims, for example, you must define future direction. These are also will be the additional criteria, even though it is not stated on the form. But most of the time, assessor will use this as part of the evaluation. But that would depend on every university lah. But then when we assessor evaluate the proposal grant too, the one that I mentioned in my slide earlier will be used as a foundation. This perhaps extra for some of the university, for example, UPM, since we are RU, these are the criteria that we are also focusing on, but doesn't mean that this is may not necessarily relevant to RU. Non-RU pun relevant, because if we include or if we look at this criteria as part of our proposal punya write-up, that will be value add lah for our proposal, yeah? Okay. Now, so having said that, this is in line dengan apa yang mentioned as part of the criteria penilaian. I think this is available on page number 16. Cadangan penyelidikan yang dipohon mestilah memenuhi kriteria berikut. Penyelidikan mestilah merupakan penyelidikan yang dapat menghasilkan satu idea, teori, konsep. I think I did mention that. Okay, this is a good for the those who are familiar with the policy development. Penyelidikan yang dapat menambah baik sesuatu polisi, metodologi dan model penyelesaian yang sedia ada. Meaning to say, when you look at policy, so this is where your job, you might want to tengok and read further the current policy on one specific national agenda, in what way your research can actually tambah baik, yeah, that particular policy. Penyelidikan yang merangkumi isu-isu kemanusiaan dan kemasyarakatan. You are looking at the the SDV, the economic development, the well-being of the Malaysian population, bagi tujuan peningkatan nilai kehidupan dalam negara dan sejagat. Meaning to say, this is slightly far from the applied research. So I would imagine that this will be the key area that set the fundamental research apart from the applied research. And penyelidikan yang berpotensi untuk menyumbang kepada agenda strategik negara. Wow, this is not easy. Okay, menyumbang kepada agenda strategik negara. So kena tahulah, we must know what will be the country agenda lah. So RMK semua tu we must read in detail lah. If we can mention specifically which particular RMK, which number, which page, that would be brilliant. Because it shows to the assessor that we know what we are doing. Yeah, that would be very, very good. Okay, so a little bit on what is research impact. So according to HEF, HEFCE, an effect of blah blah blah. Okay, as you can see here, economy, society, culture, public policy and services, health and environment. So when we talk about impact ni bukan in terms of our citation sahaja, but in what way our work is accepted, our work is good, our work is actually boleh diguna pakai by the country, by the government, public policy, and so on. It helps to develop a better policy. Even though policy too is developed by Kementerian, but we provide the input. Okay, we provide the input. Okay, so this is according to the UKRI. They have actually divided the economic impact and academic impact completely altogether. The demonstrable contribution that excellent research makes to scientific advances across and within discipline, including significant advances in understanding, method, theory, and application. All right, advances. The keyword here is actually advances. All right. So we don't want to repeat the same thing. There must be something new, something different, something unique. And then in the context of economic and societal impact, it has got to bring benefit. Okay, bring benefit to individuals, organization, and nation. Okay. All right. So dah buka. It is dah buka. If I'm not mistaken, kalau UPM, the last date for us to submit for UPM level, if I'm not mistaken, on the 17th of February, so that we can actually have time to give to the assessor to evaluate and review the proposal. So even though I mentioned here strongly encourage, tapi memang compulsory lah now, ya. Compulsory. As I mentioned, this is introduced last year. Okay, to collaborate with relevant industry agency, you must provide evidence of the patent search and what is required to identify and provide risk assessment plan. Okay, I think that is obvious. Now, way forward, you must understand the grant examiner. They are very meticulous. Okay, novelty proven by index corpus. Okay, you have to name the journal. List down if you are required. If I'm not mistaken, now the requirement is 2. Okay, the requirement is 2 journal, index journal. Scopus lah, ya, Scopus. You have to sync from the beginning till the end. Sync in terms of the proposal. Everything must be tied up together. You have to marry each and every one of them. When you mention the title, the proposal, the problem statement, the literature review, the methodology, they have to answer each other. They have to be in synergy, okay? And your application has got to be within the 7 domain, 8 cluster, 10 MICE SCIE, 15 SPV, and 18 SDG. And there must be a clear, synergy among all this. Okay, it has got to be a well-written proposal. You have to update the personal profile on your migrant site. Okay, this is the one that I mentioned. If you go to migrant website, you have got general account, your personal information. This is where you update about yourself, your past project, your publication. You can add here to show your... this is very important. This is extremely important. This is where the assessor will actually look at the suitability of your research work, as well as your member. For example, if your expertise is in area A, but you need to have someone in the area of methodology. For example, if you are a qualitative person, but you need to have someone who are good at mixed method. So the profile of your member are also very important, because the assessor can actually go direct and see the CV. Okay. So don't ignore this. You have to start updating your migrant profile. You have to market yourself. This is very important. Okay. Your supervision, your teaching, your consultation, your community service. This is all very important. Some of our researchers, they kata, never mind as long as my proposal is good. No, this is very important, because that will be from the assessor perspective. Another perspective, you are looking at other members from other university. If, let's say, for example, they need your expertise, they need to invite you as a researcher. They will actually look at your CV. If I'm not mistaken, you can assess the CV. I tak perasan. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I think you can assess the CV. Okay, you can assess the CV from other colleagues. So that will actually add to the marketability of yourself lah. But saya cakap je, saya pun ada lagi tak update. Nak kena update jugalah ya. So please, okay, it is our responsibility to update ourselves, to improve our marketability and to improve our chance to be selected lah. Okay, our proposal to be accepted. Okay, so ideally when you talk about writing a winning proposal, there is no one size fit all. Memang is good to take a look at other proposal from other people, how the way it is written. But then it depends on what we wanted to do. For example, when you talk about research background, when I read the proposal, for example, I find it very informative. I find it a lot of information is added. Unlike the other proposal, for example, that there is no, you don't have a feeling, your soul tu macam dry sebab you cannot see in what way this proposal are important because a lot of information are not added. The fact, the statistic about what is happening around you is not there. You cannot really highlight why is it, for example, studying, let's say for example B40 or a specific group of people are important sebab none is mentioned about the current scenario. So in another word, you have to read newspaper. Kalau dulu newspaper cutting lah, but now no more cutting. You don't have to cut. Tengok, you tengok what is reported in Astro Awani, what is reported in Bernama TV. Avoid completely to use personal blog. That is not accepted. Okay, in research that is not accepted. Dan jangan guna definition daripada Wikipedia. That is no, is a big no. When it comes to a literature review, for example, the definition that guide us, or in another word, you call it operational definition, is very important. It has got to be established and sesuai with the context of our research. So you have to know all these things. Nama pun winning proposal, you cannot take things easy lah on this, yeah? Alright, so finally, the key takeaway, sebab dah 4:30, perhaps lepas ni we have the Q&A session, yeah? Okay, the first one, your research has got to be fundamental. Okay, fundamental in terms of concept and issue. In order to find out what is fundamental, there must be something that new, something that has not been done by other people before. Okay, katakanlah, I'm not sure whether this is fair or not. Katakanlah it has been done by other group of people, but you still want to do it. You have to highlight in what way your research will be adding from new perspective. Okay, katakanlah it has been done before. The gap that you identify, this is like something like teaching research method to the student lah. You must be very clear with the gap. Katakanlah it has been done before, but in what way your current research will be fundamental from different perspective, perhaps different context. Katakanlah dulu it has been done on the total population, but now you are going to focus on B40. Why B40? Why? Because their quality of life is badly affected. Then you can support with the current unemployment. You can support with a lot of the mushrooming of online business and so on. So it has got to be a synergy. And in what way, when you are focusing on a specific group of people, you are contributing to a specific nation. All right. So that has got to be very clear. Okay. Detail and meticulous. I did highlight the importance of being very meticulous in regarding the proposal. Synchronization from A to Z. Now, the word synchronization is very, very, very important. You have to synchronize from A to Z. From the start, you write the proposal, the title, the executive summary, the research background, the synchronization between the marrying between the problem statement, research objective, and research question. And in what way, based on this synchronization, it will contribute to the clear and significant impact. Okay, and finally the output lah. All right. So I think this has been covered throughout the sharing session. Okay. Last but not least, things for us to ponder. The UiTM panel or the higher institution, we evaluate, we give a lot of comment to improve. So when you get the comment from the internal panel, don't feel bad. You take it as constructively in order to improve. We as assessor, we always have a notion where we wanted to help our colleague, okay, our friend. So when you look at the comment that is provided, it's not to reject your it's not to reject your proposal. You have to take it constructively. And even though we know each assessor, they are very subjective, but that's okay. When we improve, meaning to say we add new things, that will actually increase the chances for our proposal to be accepted at kementerian punya level. Okay. Okay, at kementerian punya level, dulu-dulu they said how to reject. Sebab application sangat banyak. As I said, altogether, nearly 110 of the university are competing for a small piece of cake from the kementerian. Perhaps they at katakanlah at MOHI level, kita akan sokong, let's say for example recommended, but then there will be another committee at kementerian punya level where their job is, let's say for example tahun ni we have got certain amount of money to be disbursed to this different university. Katakanlah UPN kita nak bagi X number sahaja. So can you imagine out of like total submission yang kita nak terima, how are we going to reject? Nak reject yang macam mana? They are all really good one, for example. So this is where to highlight that it is very important for us to prepare a very good and solid proposal. Okay, success rate. I don't have the recent detail, but then 2017 the success rate 12%, 2018 24%. Ada increment lah, but nowadays with the current economic situation, we do not know how much budget will be allocated lah for FRGS. Okay, so what will be our job? To polish our proposal. Alright, so don't prepare in a short period of time. You have to reflect back. Once you prepare, simpan. Kalau dulu my supervisor said you have to put it in a drawer for a while, then you ambil balik, then you read. We may not have that luxury of time, but then don't write without proofreading your own work before you get feedback from your colleague, from your member. Don't submit half-baked proposal. Alright? So the proposal, what is more important, it has got to be synced with the current national agenda. You need to know what is it the current direction of the country, okay? And you have to follow FRGS guideline diligently, okay? So these are the last slide that I can share with you guys. And last but not least, the mapping, the sync of everything that you write is very, very important, okay? So I think that's all for now for the sharing session. Thank you very much. So I will stop the sharing for now so that we can go back to our Mila. Yeah. Thank you very much. Perhaps while waiting for the moderator, in case if anybody here would like to ask question, I would be very happy to answer the question.
I cannot unmute myself. Yeah.
But I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me, Prof?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because somebody, Prof Nurul was telling me and said that people couldn't listen to what I'm saying.
I can hear you very clearly, Doctor.
All right. Okay. I think there's one question, and then there's also another question about salah satu dari penerbitan mesti terindeks. I think that's not a question, that's just a statement that you have also mentioned.
Okay.
And then there's another question about if the PI is a junior researcher and recently graduated, but there are other seniors in the team that with that influence or affect the application. Okay, I think I bacakan dulu ya, yang tulis ni dulu ya, Prof. Nanti
Doktor, baca 3 at one time, nanti saya tak ingat dah episode satu.
I think I let you answer for that 2 questions that I have, right? Because
okay.
That was quite a number kan tadi. Okay. Okay, I just let you answer that one first, Prof, because
Okay.
perspective of the panel and also the as an author yourself. So I think your input was very extensive. So I let you answer. Kita tak nak panjangkan, saya pula yang bercakap. Okay.
Okay. While waiting kan, saya nak onkan saya punya apa tu? Laptop dulu kan, tiba-tiba habis bateri pula. Sekejap ya. Okay. Alright. First question tadi related to the seniority of the application, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think if you have a strong team, it will not affect the application. Sebab provided you need to have a senior member that can actually guide you. Kalau tak, nanti sampai bila kan? You nak tunggu to be a senior. But then you need to have a strong team. Perhaps you may want to invite one professor or at least associate professor, okay, to be in a team. Then here perhaps that associate professor or professor that you invited to nak kena ada kepakaran ni in the area of research that you are applying. Kalau saya lah, benda ni very subjective. If I'm the assessor, I will not look at this lightly lah, sebab this is where we can, if the proposal are really good, why should you reject the proposal? Sebab you nak bagi peluang dekat junior juga untuk try out the FRGS, especially when you just graduated with your PhD, perhaps your idea pun banyak kan?
Yeah, betul.
Okay, I think that would be one question. The other one I didn't get it tadi.
I think the question was about some if it is very dia bagi contoh nak bertanya berkenaan prominent research, because I think you mentioned about prominent berkenaan prominent research.
Right.
Okay, and then she gave us an example. If we use some model dan kita buat penambahbaikan variable dalam some model tu, adakah dikategorikan sebagai fundamental?
Okay. Now my question back kepada yang bertanya. Okay, TAM tu adalah Technology Acceptance Model ya. Kalau kita buat penambahbaikan, academically, yes, that would be the contribution to the body of knowledge, because we are actually adding new construct. Okay, certainly it is a contribution to the body of knowledge. But then in what way TAM ni can be applicable to the society at large, for example? Because I would imagine that government punya agenda, KPT punya agenda nak kena jaga dulu. So in what way, when you write about TAM, your research will contribute to that perspective? Sebab yang saya nampak, mungkin the question will be quite general lah. Kalau katakanlah, yang saya nampak lah, kalau you propose a model, okay, TAM punya model, you add your own construct. Normally research objective akan jadi to examine the relationship between, kalau macam tu, itu dah bukan fundamental research lah. Okay, kalau macam tu, itu dah bukan fundamental research. Itu lebih kepada applied research. Sebab, why I say applied research? Sebab you guna pakai TAM yang sedia ada untuk tambah construct. Contribution is there, but then perhaps daripada konteks fundamental tu kita tak berapa nampak, unless you can highlight how by proposing a new TAM model can actually help a specific group of people. You see? Maknanya nak kata tak relevant 100% pun saya tak berani, because that would depend on the content of your proposal. If, let's say for example, by proposing a new TAM model, it will benefit a specific group of people, that will be brilliant lah. Yeah?
Right. Okay. This is my question, Prof. I'll lagi kat bawah tu. My question is that when you mentioned about the 7 domain, the 8 clusters that has been, I think that is a new new guidelines that for this year, 2020. So when you mentioned that, the domains, the cluster, the 10 MISCIE and whatnot, do we have to mention that somewhere in our write-up of the proposal?
Okay, macam ni. When we apply, dalam borang tu, we have to declare, we have to clarify. Yes. Ada setempat, sebab saya pun tak masuk lagi tengok borang baru ni. Ada setempat yang you kena declare you domain mana. And then let's say for example, let me touch on the SDG. Atau the Shared Prosperity Vision. Kita ada KEGA tadi yang I mentioned, KEGA 1 until KEGA 15, ya. So let's say for example KEGA 15, Malaysia Truly Asia, or KEGA 12, Green Economy. So kalau katakanlah we declare ourselves as part of KEGA 12, Green Economy, kat mana the discussion in our literature review, kat mana the relevancy and the problem that is happening in the context of green economy? What is the current scenario of green economy at the moment? As I said, sebab saya tak masuk lagi borang baru, so I do not know how they can capture all this. Tapi the discussion should be geared towards meeting this group lah, KEGA and SDG.
I think I dah buka dah, Prof. Dia punya yang ada hanya ada untuk domain and cluster, tak silap saya. Hanya cluster. Yang FPV, SDG tu dia tak ada kategori, maknanya kita tak adalah pilihan di situ. Kalau
kita tak boleh declare, ya?
Tak boleh declare apa-apa. Jadi adakah it's good to mention dalam kita punya penulisan proposal? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Okay. I would say yes. Let's say for example when we write, sebab kita nak kena critically write our proposal. So when we write, we provide example. Let's say for example green economy, KEGA 12, so when you write, you bagi example the green economy, top up the literature, and then the write up at the end you may want to mention this is in line with the government vision 2030 or shared prosperity, where according to the vision KEGA 12 is actually related to green economy, which align with the current context of the research. Kena sebut lah. When they don't actually request that from us, kita kena sebut. We make it explicit. We make it explicit.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. And then ada banyak ni soalan ni. Saya baru ada lagi 50 kat bawah tu, saya tak tengok apa yang ditulis. Tapi I'm just thinking, kalau ada yang tertinggal dan tak terlepas tu, minta maaf lah ya, participant. Okay, the other one is how many references or length of LR is sufficient? Is it advisable to get international researcher? I think, and then if yes, how to add them? To add them, so I think nanti RMC and Renew can bantu that one. I think Dr. Prof. Yuhanis tak perlu jawab that one. Okay, that's 2 questions dulu. Nanti saya baca the other one. Ada lagi satu.
Kalau nak kata how many pages of literature review tu susah juga saya nak jawab. Sebab kalau katakanlah untuk journal article tu kita tahu kan, sometimes some of the journal they have got like rule of thumb, for example background of the study banyak mana, literature banyak mana, even some of the journal they combine the literature review with hypothesis punya explanation kan. As far as I'm concerned, the literature review tu tak boleh panjang sangat. That's why I said earlier, it has got to be you need to draw a line. Okay, you need to draw a line to show that not too lengthy but not too short. It is sufficient. Saya nak letak page number pun agak susah sebab kita tak nak, if it is too lengthy, it will be distracted. I may not necessarily answer the question directly lah.
Yes,
susah kan?
Betul.
But then, I think the tips that I can give you, let's say for example, when you want to write literature review, you have to be sure to cover all the key area. Let's say for example, if you wanted to talk about green economy, okay, you have to capture the green economy. Ataupun lama saya bukan orang ekonomi. Let me give an example of sustainable tourism lah ya. Okay, sustainable tourism, the notion of sustainable tourism or the context of sustainability need to be explained from 3 different perspectives. Economy, social culture as well as environment kan. The sustainability. So the discussion should cover all the 3 areas. Sustainability of tourism in the context of what? Maknanya we cannot leave out an important one, sebab most of the time in the title kita ada, in the problem statement ada, but suddenly when comes to literature review, benda tu tak ada. So if you write well, if you integrate from one discussion to another, kalau panjang sikit saya rasa okay. Because if you write well, you don't feel distracted lah nak baca. Unless kalau you start copy paste here and there, kejap kat atas, kejap kat bawah, that one immediately we will write poor up to literature review, not structured, blah 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 lah. So kita tak ada page number sebab bila kita write, dia jadi panjang macam tu kan. So you have to tulis dulu, then you revise accordingly. Make it concise and compact without missing all the information that is required. Yeah? Okay.
I think justify if we would say that everything that is stated in the title must be mentioned in the literature.
Yes.
I think that would be it covers, right? It covers.
Yes. Contoh, kalau you nak cakap pasal value, you mention about value dalam problem statement and so on. Dalam research objective pun you mention about how does the value evaluated ke apa, but then there is no literature on value. Tak boleh lah. Ya, tak boleh. Maknanya bila you write, you kena tengok apa benda yang masuk, apa benda yang tak masuk.
Okay. I think this is one of the question that is always being asked. Okay, and sometimes kita pun tak tahu macam nak jawab. Tadi pun ada dengar dekat soalan masa kita punya taklimat tu. Is it advisable? I think this is not the exact word of the soalan tadi, but I'm trying to reiterate. So maybe I missed the words exactly. But can we recycle our proposal from the previous one, because we have some last year we have a very good proposal, and there are questions about can we recycle the proposal, because as you know that we did not get any last year. So some of the good proposals the researcher wanted to maybe quote unquote recycle. Would that be advisable, or is there a tip to, if we still find that the issue is still pending and we wanted to sampai dapat lah macam tu kan. So what do you think? Prof?
Okay, this is my personal opinion lah. Saya tak tahu orang lain. Kalau nak recycle boleh, but don't recycle completely without making any penambahbaikan or any adjustment. You have to add in recent issues, because the fact that our proposal is rejected because it is not meeting the requirement as wished by the requirement as required by the assessor, and sometimes proposal kita kena reject, mungkin tak cukup budget. That one we do not know lah. That would be at higher level kan.
Yes.
Okay. Tapi please don't submit exactly the same thing. Because the fact that it has been rejected, katakanlah kita bersangka baik lah ya. The proposal is rejected sebab tak cukup budget lah katakan. Okay, walaupun tak cukup budget, tapi we have to reflect to the assessor that this is something new that we have added significantly. So kalau nak recycle 100% tak boleh. Sebab bagi saya lah, if I'm the assessor, kalau saya dah tengok the application that has been applied before, the record is there. Saya boleh go back and check what sort of penambahbaikan yang dah dibuat. So kalau kita hantar 100% the same one, memang tak wajar lah. Kan? Tak wajar. Memang tak wajar.
Kalau paper tu proposal tu adalah satu topik tertentu, dia mesti tiba kepada assessor yang topik yang sama. Maksudnya kalau tahun lepas assessor tu dah tengok, dia akan tengok juga kan.
Yes.
One last question, Prof, about the risk. How do we define, or how do we state which is low risk, medium risk, and high risk for our studies?
Okay. Kita kena tengok context of our research. Let's say for example there might be ni saya tengok risk dalam konteks social science lah ya. Let's say for example the risk of not getting the right data from a specific group of people. Contohlah kata we wanted to do research di kalangan penagih dadah. Alright. Normally the sample technique that we use will be snowball sampling ya. Okay. Okay, penagih dadah might not be the right one lah, ataupun katakanlah bukan penagih dadah ni single parent yang teraniaya. Okay, single parent yang teraniaya for whatever reason. So normally there might be an association. It will be much easier for us to go through their association. But there are also situations if we can get hold of one. This is what we call snowball sampling kan. From one person they will introduce to another. So the risk of not getting data is there if you don't get the right introducer for the first time. Okay, and these are the kind of data that is not easy for us to get. For example, katakanlah you nak buat research on those unfortunate punya group mungkin data yang ada dengan a specific kementerian is there. Katakanlah Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, ya. Maybe they have the statistic. That statistic will help us to prepare the sampling plan. But when it comes to the actual data collection, it will be very hard for us. Kita hanya ada statistik, but how are we going to approach them? Because this research is fundamental. Kita boleh imagine it has never been done before. So these are the kind of risks that we are looking at. But then from the perspective of assessor, we are looking at the risk in terms of, besides getting the data, we are looking at the risk in terms of the sensitivity of the respondent that we are going to collect the data. Okay, the sensitivity in terms of for example the budget pun sama juga. Okay, the risk of not getting the data and the risk of the confidentiality of the data. Okay, that will be another issue lah, because some of the research are related to a specific organization where we cannot simply release the information that is provided. Okay. So, bukan semua data is easy for us to be identified. Okay, especially at fundamental punya level lah. The risk of not getting the data if you wanted to get it from the government punya counterpart pun ada, because some of the data are very highly confidential. Yeah.
Yeah. And then would that be what do you call? Will affect our application? Meaning that we said that okay, this is high risk, and then will that be, affect our application?
Okay, perhaps yes, kalau benda tu very critical lah. I cannot really give a good example for this. I'm sorry. Sebab kalau katakanlah in the context of my research, the risk may not be necessarily there. Kalau if you go out and collect the data from the normal customers, for example, in the context of marketing or tourist, the risk may not be necessarily there lah. Ataupun katakanlah if your focus group are specific to a group of people, katakanlah you wanted to collect the data from the patient, okay, the patient at the hospital, perhaps there might be the risk associated of not getting the access from the hospital. Because they are looking at the confidentiality ataupun they are looking at the private punya macam mana nak kata they cannot release information, then they tak boleh benarkan kita pergi interview their people.
So meaning what I'm trying to say, Prof, is that it depends on the researcher themselves. They know what kind of things they might be facing. So and then if there's the tendency when we look at this methodology, and there's the tendency of it's difficult to get the data, then if we put it as low, then there's a question mark from the part of as assessor. I mean as the assessor also knows the realms of the study as opposed to the researcher. I mean sama-sama pun dalam bidang yang sama, then maybe they also have some kind of justification whether it's low, medium and high. So maksudnya it's up to the researcher themselves.
Yes.
And if tak boleh, justifiable lah, justifiable
Yeah.
lah. Yeah.
You need to know your context of research well lah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I think this one last question, Prof. How do we know that the research that we are submitting is entitled for 3 years or 2 years?
Okay, I think that would depend on the number of your research objectives. Okay, that would depend on type of data collection. For example, if you do mixed method, normally we will start with a qualitative research and then followed by the validation through the survey, katakan. So this is why you plan. Maknanya, how do you know? You kena plan. You kena, when you write your proposal, you need to prepare your timeline, the research flow, and this is where you can see, is it enough for me to collect the data for interview just katakanlah 3 months? Okay, because once, let's say for example, if you plan to develop a new measure, okay, a new measurement. Okay, new measurement, you will have to go conduct interview, you will have to refine, and you're going to use your new measurement in the current survey. So that might require a longer time, perhaps 3 years. Kalau you nak conduct just a qualitative interview without mixed method, perhaps 2 years will be sufficient. Alright? So this is where kadang-kadang, if assessor feel like 3 years it will be too long, then they will suggest 2 years, because when you talk about 2 versus 3, that will also affect the budget that you will apply. Okay, it comes together lah, it comes together. So you prepare your proposal, you tengok terus timeline, okay, is it enough for me to collect data for 3 months? When do I need to start? Okay, so it goes along with the process of the making research lah at the same time.
Right, thank you, Prof. I think I covered I covered all questions that in the chat box. Thank you again, Prof. It was very informative. Minta maaf kita tak boleh nak sediakan air untuk you.
Tak apa.
And the content of your presentation covers from the perspective of the panel assessor and also the submission that they have done earlier, the successful submission that they have done. So with that, we thank you for your sharing, and I would like to also let everybody know, the participants know, that we have another 2 sessions. We have another session on Monday on FRGS webinar, and then there's another one on the 3rd of February with Prof. Nozaidi. Also on the winning FRGS, I mean there's a, not winning, but there's a on FRGS under the topic of FRGS also. So with that, thank you again, Prof. Yuhanis, for your time and for your ilmu, and thank you all participants for joining us this afternoon, and we'll see you around, Prof. With that, yes, we'll see you around, and maybe we have some collaboration in the future in other areas of collaboration, inshallah. Right, thank you,
Okay.
Prof.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Chemah, Dr. Nurul, and the rest of the community. Thank you for the invitation. Alhamdulillah, I really hope that my sharing today will assist you in the preparation of the proposal, because nak bagi semua tu memang tak boleh, because different proposal will have different context, yeah.
Yep.
But in the end, I wish everyone all the best. Let's hope that next year UITM can get more research grant.
Thank you.
Especially for FRGS. Okay. Keep moving. Inshallah, one day it will be yours. Yeah?
Yes, inshallah.
Alright. Okay. Assalamualaikum semua. All the best. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.